Have you ever actually thought about how much sugar you're eating in a day? Like, really thought about it? Because I think most of us, at least on some level, probably realize that sugar is not great. But it's also pretty easy to not really think about how much sugar you're actually consuming on a daily basis, or what all that sugar is actually doing to your body. Or the fact, if you're like most people, that you're actually addicted to sugar and you don't even realize it, even if you think you don't have a sugar problem. And that's why in today's episode, I wanted to take a deep dive into all things sugar, including some of the not so obvious signs that you might be eating too much, but also what it actually means to detox your body from sugar and what kind of an impact that can have on your health. It's definitely a meaty episode with lots of practical takeaways, but my hope is that it will inspire you to take some action. Welcome to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Ruth Sukup, and here we'll talk about everything from the science of weight loss to practical tips for making your health a priority in the midst of a busy life. It's a little bit nerdy, a little bit funny, and a little bit revolutionary. So buckle up, friend, because it's about to get real. Hey there, and welcome back to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast. Once again, my name is Ruth Sukup, and I'm the founder of Thinlicious and the creator of the Thin Adapted System, as well as the New York Times bestselling author of 7 books. And if this is your first time listening, then you should also know that I am pretty much obsessed with one thing: helping women over 40 create freedom in their lives by transforming your health. I kind of like to think of it as starting a health revolution, and that's really what this podcast is all about. Because honestly, I know what it's like to not have that freedom. I spent years struggling with my weight, failing at one diet after another until I finally figured out that there's a much better way to lose weight and get healthy. And now basically, I can't stop talking about it. The reality is that so much of what we have been told our entire lives about what's healthy and what's not healthy is just wrong. There's so much misinformation out there, misinformation that has literally been bought and paid for by the big food companies and the sugar industry and all the pharmaceutical companies. And that's why so many of us continue to struggle with getting healthy and losing weight, even when we think we're doing the right things. And a lot of it comes down to sugar and sugar addiction, which is exactly what I want to talk about today. Because sugar is a huge enemy to your health and to your weight goals. And we're going to blow the lid on why that is and what you can do about it. But before we dive in, one thing I do want to make sure to mention is that if you are new to this podcast and to the whole Thinlicious movement, then you should know that I have put together a really awesome and totally free on-demand training video called Healthy, Happy, and Free that is designed to help you map out a personalized plan for improving your health based on the proven metabolic science that we follow in our program. It will help you understand why what you've likely tried until now hasn't worked and what you can do differently to get healthy and lose weight without dieting, without drugs, and without making yourself miserable. And again, it is totally free. All you have to do to get it is go to thinlicious.com/video. Once again, that's thinlicious.com/video. So definitely go watch that if you haven't already. I know it will be a big help to you. And like I said, it's totally free, so it's kind of a no-brainer. All right. So with that out of the way, let's dive into the topic of the day, the fact that most of us are sugar addicts and in desperate need of a sugar detox. And I know that might have sounded like a bold statement, but I hope that word addict actually got your attention. It should grab your attention because being an addict is never really a good thing, right? It's not typically something that we're proud of. And yet, despite the fact that our entire society is addicted to sugar, and despite the fact that this addiction has literally caused an epidemic of sickness and obesity in our country, no one really seems to care that much. We just keep feeding the beast. Sugar is literally everywhere. It's almost impossible to escape. The food companies add it to almost every single food they manufacture, knowing full well how addictive it is. In fact, they count on the fact that it's addictive. And at the same time, we've basically elevated sugar to a symbol of love and happiness and joy, right? People offer us apple pies and our favorite desserts and candies as tokens of affection. Just about every holiday on our calendar is celebrated with, you guessed it, sweet treats. It's no wonder that kicking this addiction is basically fighting an uphill battle. But the first step is actually realizing you might have a problem. So let's start there. Let's start by talking through some of the not so obvious signs of sugar addiction that you've probably been missing or maybe blaming on other factors. The first sign that you might be eating too much sugar and that you possibly are addicted to sugar is that you're always hungry, even right after you've eaten a big meal. And this is because sugar has a way of spiking your blood sugar levels, which in turn triggers the release of the hormone insulin. And when your insulin levels go up, it can actually make you feel even hungrier and cause you to crave even more sugar and carbohydrates. This is what's known as the sugar roller coaster, and it's a very real thing that a lot of people experience on a daily basis without even realizing it. You eat something that's high in sugar or high in carbohydrates, which your body thinks of as sugar, and your blood sugar spikes. You get a little burst of energy, and then a few hours later, you come crashing down and you feel tired and irritable and hungry or hangry. So you reach for something else that's high in sugar or carbohydrates, and the whole cycle starts all over again. And it's a hard cycle to break because the more sugar you eat, the more you crave it. In fact, some studies have shown that sugar is actually more addictive than cocaine and that it has a very similar effect on the brain. And that's why if you're someone who's always hungry and who's always craving sugar and always craving carbohydrates, it's the first sign that you're actually addicted to sugar and that you're eating a lot more of it than you realize. So that's the first thing. But the second not so obvious sign that you might be eating too much sugar is that you feel tired all the time. And this is another very common problem that a lot of people experience on a daily basis and don't necessarily attribute it to that cause, right? Don't necessarily equate that to being addicted to sugar. But a lot of times, what it actually is caused by is, again, your unstable blood sugar levels and a diet that's high in sugar and carbohydrates. Because, again, when you're eating sugar on a regular basis and your blood sugar levels are constantly spiking and crashing, it has this major impact on your energy levels. And again, you might notice that you have tons of energy right after you eat something that's high in sugar or carbohydrates. But then a few hours later, you come crashing down and you feel tired and lethargic and like you need a nap. And so you reach for something else that's high in sugar or carbohydrates, and the whole cycle starts all over again. So that's really the second big thing to watch out for, that lack of energy or just feeling tired all the time or having these slumps that happen throughout the day. Sign number 3 that you might be eating too much sugar and you might possibly be addicted to sugar is pretty closely related to that, and that's that you have trouble sleeping at night. Because as it turns out, what you eat during the day has a huge impact on how well you sleep at night. So you might think that the reason you're tired all the time is because you're not sleeping well at night, but the reason that you're probably not sleeping well at night is also because of the sugar. Because if your blood sugar levels are constantly spiking and crashing throughout the day, that is actually affecting your sleep cycles all around the clock, right? It's making it harder for you to fall asleep, and it's making it harder for you to stay asleep. And so you might notice that you have a hard time falling asleep at night, or that you wake up a lot during the night, or that you just don't feel very well rested in the morning. So that's the third thing you should be watching out for, that you're just not getting very high quality sleep. The fourth surprising sign that you might be eating too much sugar or have a sugar addiction is that you have a lot of digestive issues. And I don't know why this would surprise us, right? It shouldn't come as a huge shock, but the food that you eat has a huge impact on your digestion and on your gut health and how well your digestive system is functioning. And this is especially true if you're eating lots of sugar and if your diet is very high in processed foods and low in fiber, right? Those are the foods that are basically wreaking havoc on your gut biome and your gut bacteria, because all of those things are super hard on your digestive system, and it leads to all those common digestive issues, things like bloating and gas or constipation or even diarrhea. You might notice that you have a lot of heartburn or acid reflux, or maybe that you just don't feel very well after you eat. So that's another really big red flag to watch out for, right? Digestive issues. And that brings me to the fifth not so obvious sign that you might be eating too much sugar, and that is that you have a lot of aches and pains. just pain everywhere, right? Chronic pain, intermittent pain, whatever it is, it's probably related to too much sugar in your diet, because what you eat has a big impact on inflammation levels in your body and on how well your joints and muscles are functioning. And once again, the reality is that sugar and highly processed foods that tend to be high in carbohydrates are all highly inflammatory. And they also contribute to leaky gut syndrome, which is when the lining of your gut becomes too permeable and starts leaking food particles into your bloodstream, which causes even more inflammation. And like I said, all of those things are very hard on your body, and it's directly related to all the aches and pains that we feel. Things like headaches and migraines and joint pains and muscle pains. You might notice that you have inflammation just all over. You might have it in your hands and feet. You might be swollen, or you might even struggle with skin issues like eczema or acne. And while all these signs and symptoms might seem totally unrelated, the truth is that they all point right back to the fact that you're consuming way too much sugar. Kind of scary, right? But how do you know whether you're actually addicted to sugar? And I suppose to answer that question, we should probably start by defining what we actually mean by sugar addiction. Because when we talk about being addicted to sugar, we're not just talking about enjoying a sweet treat once in a while, right? Everybody does that. But what we're talking about is a dependence on sugar that actually affects your brain and body like a drug. When you consume sugar over and over and over again, right, on a daily basis, your brain releases dopamine, that feel-good chemical, which creates a reward sensation in your brain, right? And so over time, your brain starts to crave more sugar to achieve that same pleasure, which is what leads to a cycle of addiction. And for most of us, this is happening without even realizing it, because sugar is in so much of the food that we eat. And that's mostly because, starting in the late 70s and the early 80s, the food industry figured out how to start extracting fructose from corn and other sources and created this new and highly addictive Franken product called high fructose corn syrup, right? We've all heard of that, high fructose corn syrup. We've probably all heard that it's bad. But what we don't realize is that the food companies started adding it to pretty much everything, right? And that's when all hell broke loose. It's added to bread and to ketchup and to sauces and to salad dressings and pretty much any processed food that you can think of: potato chips, cereal, granola bars, even things like yogurt and sports drinks. And like I said, the food companies want to add high fructose corn syrup to as much food as they can because they know it's addictive and they know it will make us crave it more. So the more we eat, the more addicted we become. And the only real way to actually break that addiction, just like if you were addicted to drugs, is to detox completely. So what does that actually look like, a sugar detox? Well, I'll be honest with you. Depending on just how addicted to sugar you are, it could be a little rough. I'm not going to lie. Your body will fight you. Your brain will fight you. And for at least a few days, you probably won't feel very good because you're experiencing real withdrawal, right? But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try it, because I promise you the benefits are so worth it. So let's talk about a few steps that you can take to make your sugar detox a reality. First, you have to understand that it's an addiction. You have to understand that what you're feeling when you cut out sugar is not just a lack of willpower, and it's not just, right, trying to deprive yourself. It is a real physiological response that's happening in your body. And the more that you can actually understand that, the more you can have mercy on yourself and the more that you can have compassion for yourself. Because I think that's the thing that trips us up a lot, right? We beat ourselves up for not having enough willpower. We beat ourselves up for not being able to resist. We beat ourselves up for giving in, but then we feel guilty and ashamed. And what do we do when we feel guilty and ashamed, especially if we're addicted to sugar? We eat more sugar. It's a vicious cycle. But the more that you can understand this is an addiction, the more you can start to reframe the way that you think about it. Because we don't usually beat ourselves up for being addicted to drugs or alcohol, right? We might, but we have compassion for people who are struggling with those kind of addictions. We try to get them help. We support them in their recovery. That's why all these different programs exist. And that's sort of the mindset that you have to have when it comes to overcoming your sugar addiction. You have to treat it like a real addiction because that's what it is. And then you have to have compassion for yourself and be willing to seek out the help and support that you need to recover. And that's actually a big part of what we do inside our TAS program, right? We provide that kind of support. We provide the tools and the resources and the knowledge that you need to actually recover from your sugar addiction and to get your body to a place where it's no longer craving sugar all the time. So that's really the first thing. Understand that it's an addiction and have compassion for yourself and be willing to get help if you need it. The second step then, though, is to actually cut out the obvious sources of sugar from your diet. And I know that probably sounds really basic, like, duh, okay, obviously I have to cut out sugar. But sometimes it's something that people struggle with because we don't even realize how much sugar we're actually consuming or how much sugar is actually in everything. Because it really, truly is literally in everything. It's in a lot of things that we don't even think about as being sweet, right? It's not just sweet stuff that has sugar. It's in all the bread and the pasta and the rice and the potatoes. It's in all the sauces and the dressings and the condiments. And it's in all the processed foods and the packaged foods and the fast food. It's in all the drinks we love to drink. It's in the things that we eat when we're not even really hungry. And so that first step to cutting out the obvious sources of sugar is to become aware of where the sugar is hiding in your diet. And the best way to do that is to start reading labels. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it's so important. You have to read the labels on everything that you eat so that you can see just how much sugar is in there. And I think you'll be shocked. I know I was, because I used to think that I didn't eat that much sugar. I'm not a big candy person. I don't drink soda, right? So I thought I was doing pretty good. But then I started reading labels and realized that I was eating so much sugar in almost everything that I was eating, even the stuff that I thought was healthy, like yogurt and granola and protein bars and green smoothies. So start reading labels and become aware of where the sugar is hiding in your diet so that you can start to avoid it. And at the same time, focus on eating real, whole foods as much as possible. Foods that don't have labels, foods that are as close to their natural state as possible, foods that you have to cook and prepare yourself. Because the more that you can do that, the more you'll automatically be cutting out a lot of the obvious sources of sugar and for sure anything that's added in, right? Any of the added stuff. And you'll also be cutting out a lot of the other crap that's in all the processed and packaged foods, like vegetable oils and the preservatives and the artificial flavors and the colors. So actually eliminating the sugar from your diet, that is a pretty essential step to your sugar detox. But that's not the only step, right? Because the next thing that I think is really, really important when it comes to overcoming your sugar addiction is to actually focus on eating enough protein and healthy fats. And this is also something we talk about a lot in our program, also a lot on this podcast, because it's a big part of what makes our TAS system so effective. But the reality is that most of us are not eating enough protein and healthy fats. We're just not. But I'm telling you, your body needs protein. It needs healthy fats in order to function properly. Your body needs protein to build and repair tissues, to make enzymes and hormones, and to help your immune system function. And you need healthy fats to help you absorb certain vitamins and minerals and protect your organs and to help regulate your hormones. And when you're not getting enough protein and healthy fats, your body actually starts to crave the things that it's missing. But what you recognize as a signal as a sugar addict is sugar, right? You'll start to try to fill those cravings with more sugar. You'll feel hungry and unsatisfied all the time, and that makes it harder to resist that sugar. But the more that you can actually focus on eating enough protein and enough healthy fats, the more you'll be able to avoid those sugar and carbohydrate cravings. Because protein and healthy fats are a lot more filling and satisfying than sugar. They are going to keep you full and they're going to keep you energized throughout the day, and they're going to help to stabilize your blood sugar levels. And that's huge. You won't be having those crashes. So that's the third thing, is to actually focus on eating enough protein and healthy fats. And the fourth and final step that I think is really important when it comes to overcoming sugar addiction is to practice some serious self-care while you detox. And I think this is also something that a lot of us don't really think about, but it's actually a big part of the equation. Because first of all, and I have to be upfront about this, right? There is a very, very good chance that if you decide to do a sugar detox, you are not going to feel good for a little while, right? You might feel shaky or lightheaded. You will probably have headaches. You will be extremely tired and lethargic. You will get nauseated. You might even throw up. You'll feel like you have the flu. And these symptoms will last for anywhere from 2 to 3 days to maybe even a week or more. So you have to be ready for that, and you have to be smart about it. Don't do a sugar detox the same week that you have an important project due at work, right? Like, let's use our brains a little bit, because you're going to want to get plenty of sleep, and you're going to want to plan some ways of taking care of yourself, right? Or distracting yourself, whether it's binge watching your favorite show on Netflix, or taking long walks outside, or soaking in the tub, or reading a book that you've been wanting to read for a really long time. Like, give yourself some other things to focus on during that time, but don't make them important things that are going to cause a lot of extra stress. And during this time, you're also going to want to make sure that you have electrolytes on hand and that you're drinking lots of water to help flush out your system, but also to keep you hydrated, because you're going to be losing a lot of essential minerals while you detox. Your body is going to be flushing out a lot of water. And so if you're not replacing those electrolytes, you're going to feel even worse. And that will actually help a lot with the detox symptoms. So I cannot emphasize it enough. But really, truly, you have to be kind to yourself while you detox. Prepare to take it easy for a few days, because this too shall pass. And then remind yourself that a few days of discomfort are worth it, right? The lifelong health benefits you're going to experience. So what are those benefits? Oh my goodness. Where do I even begin talking about it? Because there are so many, right? Like, it's amazing, and you are going to feel amazing after you get through that initial detox. So first of all, say hello to better energy levels, right? You're going to have so much more energy. When you cut out sugar, you avoid those nasty sugar crashes that leave you feeling like a zombie by mid-afternoon. You find that your energy is way more stable all throughout the day. And you can actually keep up with your kids or your grandkids, right? Or outlast them. You don't feel like you need a nap in the middle of the afternoon anymore. You have enough energy to cook dinner at the end of the day. Like, the energy piece is so huge. Like, that alone makes it worth it. But that's only the first thing, right? The next thing is it'll improve your mood, right? No more feeling irritable or moody or anxious because of those sugar fluctuations. Those have a huge impact on our mood, that feeling hangry because our blood sugar is dropping. You don't experience that anymore when you detox from sugar. You're going to have better sleep, right? You're going to find that you just start sleeping through the night. You start falling asleep easier. Your body is regulating its hormones properly, and so you're having more rest at night. You're going to have clearer skin. Ditching sugar is going to work wonders for your complexion. Sugar causes a lot of inflammation, right? So it's affecting your gut. That's leading to breakouts. That's accelerating aging, accelerating wrinkles. It actually will make you look younger and brighter and take away those dark circles under your eyes. It's amazing. And then, of course, there's the weight factor, right? Dropping sugar means you're not wreaking havoc with your hormones, which is not only beneficial to your overall health, but will actually help you start to shed those stubborn pounds. When you start to regulate your hormones, the weight comes off naturally. I talk about that all the time, but it's a pretty amazing benefit of cutting out sugar. And speaking of your overall health, reducing your sugar intake is also going to lower your risk of chronic diseases, things like heart disease, autoimmune conditions, cancer even. It's adding years to your life just by making a simple dietary change. And at the same time, you will experience more stable blood sugar levels, which will help to prevent insulin resistance and other metabolic disorders, which means a lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes, as well as just better overall health and longevity. And then last but not least, cutting out sugar improves brain function. If you feel like you have brain fog all the time, right? Like, you're just not clear and you just can't think properly, you will find it easier to concentrate, easier to remember things. It'll make you sharper at work in your daily life. Basically, there's not a part of your overall health that won't be improved by detoxing your body from sugar and breaking your addiction. It is literally trading a few days of discomfort for a lifetime of rewards. And I got to say this, at the end of the day, you are worth it, right? You are worth it. You are worth making that change. So I really encourage you. I said at the beginning of this podcast, I hope it encourages you to take action. And I still feel that way. That is everything that I have for you today. I hope this episode was super helpful. You're ready to plan a sugar detox and experience all the amazing benefits for your health. But if it still feels scary and you're not sure that you can do it all on your own, please know that our TAS program is probably the most amazing place you will ever find for support on your health journey. Our community and our coaching team is really like no other. We're so good at walking you through every part of your journey, step by step, including that initial sugar detox. And again, if you want more info on how to get started, check out my free training at thinlicious.com/video. And if you found this episode helpful, I would love it if you could do me a huge favor and leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you like to listen. Or if you know anyone who would benefit from this info, be sure to pass it along. And then I will be back very soon with another new episode.